Why might that make sense?
To try to sell in 175.
Yeah. So it seems crazy, right? Normally you would think it's always a better idea to try and sell below your competition, right? Just be like, we want to be the cheapest one, right? But why might it be a good idea to sell at 175? Think about it. When something is expensive, what do you think of the quality? You think it's good quality, right? If you compare a Ferrari to a Toyota, right? Why is Ferrari so expensive? Basically the quality. You know, when you see it, it looks, it's a sexy looking car, right? When you hit the gas, I've never driven a Ferrari, but when you hit the gas, it roars, right? The engine screams, basically, right? So people have what we're going to call this is also an important word, right? Okay? So right now we've just been thinking about cost, but I just want you to think about pricing in general, right? What we're going to say is perception. This is probably a word. This is a word that we've studied earlier in the class, right? When we were talking about consumer psychology. But perception is a really, really important concept. Perception is, what do I think, right? When I'm buying, when I think of, you know, shoes from Florsheim, when I think of clothes from Uniqlo, when I think of cars from Ferrari, what am I thinking of? What is my perception about the brand? If you can market your brand, right? If you have, you know, let's say a really sort of maybe like an older actor, right? Let's just say in your advertisement, who's like really famous or something like that. If you can market your brand as we're sort of a classy, high quality type product, right? You might not sell as much. Instead of selling 15 million, you might sell 12 million or 10 million. But it's made up for, just like when we said that, you know, if you charge a lower cost, right? If you charge a lower price, what happens to your profit? Does it rise or does it fall? Vincent? Is your profit less or is it more when you sell it at a lower price? Less. But what about your total profit? Right? It probably will, because if you sell less, people will want your jacket more, and we can produce more at $100 per jacket and make more total profit. In the same way, if you charge a higher price, right, you might sell less. But because your price is higher, your total profit will still be higher because people's perception, right, is different. So you know how like all those companies that are charging maybe 140, right, like 130, like 135, right? They're appealing to a certain market, right? But if you charge like 180 or even $200, you may, and this is why doing research is really, really important, right? You have to really, really understand like your market, right? You might be attracting a totally different market, right? People who have more money to spend, right? People who look for higher quality stuff. And they might start buying your products. And you get people who also buy some of these products, right? So it's kind of interesting. So what I'm saying is basically, so we've sort of studied the costing, right? All the things that go into producing something. And now you're looking at all the different things that companies have to think about when they're really thinking about what price are we ultimately going to charge for this, right? So that's an exercise I wanted you guys to go through because I kind of wanted you guys to like come out of this class being like, when you see a price tag, you're never going to look at a price tag the same way ever again, right? Because there's two components, right? The word component, right, equals part or piece. You know, if something has three components, you put it together, right? And you create something new, right? So when you have $100, right? $100, right? Maybe this much is the cost. the cost of manufacturing it, right? All the things, all the money that you spent, right, in creating it. And this much is profit, right? So sometimes the profit is like 50% of it, right? Sometimes it might cost, a lot of times this happens, right? BMW, for instance, right? It doesn't cost much more to create than a Toyota. There's not really that much of a difference. But because BMW, the market, right, the perception about BMW is that it's really, really high quality, they can charge those higher prices. That logo means a lot. Audi, Ferrari, all these companies, right? These cars aren't much higher quality than Hyundais or like Toyotas or Hondas, right? But the truth is that like people have a different perception about them. And so they can charge, their profit maybe is like 60, 70%. This is true. Of course, the thing is, clearly, of course, there's so many more Toyotas and so many more like regular cars that are sold in the world, right? But because they make so much profit per vehicle that they sell, right? Ferrari profit is probably like, if they sell a Ferrari for $350,000, right? I can guarantee you $250,000 of that is probably profit. I do not believe it takes more than $100,000 to make a car. I think that's crazy, in fact. I think the fact that you can make a 4-seater airplane, right? A Cessna, right? Those really small airplanes for like the same amount tells you that it can't be more than like $100,000. Even that's being generous. So every Ferrari that they sell, 80% of that money that they get is profit, basically. So what happens is, you see, it's the same principle. They sell a little. They don't sell that much. But what they do sell, they make an enormous amount. Their total profits are still gigantic. It's not going to be enough as big as Toyota, obviously, or like Hyundai, or any of these companies, right? Just because of the sheer volume of cars that are sold. But it doesn't have to be. Their profit per, yeah, what's up?
I would like to know the expression to say, like, to sell a big amount in a low profit, or sell a small amount in a. Do you have any specific expression?
Are you saying is there a specific expression for that?
So in like in
So for instance, we could say that Toyota has high sales,
high sales, low profit.
low profitability, and low profit. So this is like, you can see the connection of words, right? It's profit and it's ability. This is the ability of one Toyota that's sold, right? The profit, that it might be, let's say, 10%. This is an example, 10 to 15% of the money that's spent on a Toyota is the profit, right? But Ferrari, what do you think Ferrari has?
Low sales, high profit.
Exactly, high profitability. Because for Ferrari, it's probably like 60% profit, even more, maybe closer to 80% even, just the pure profit, right? Some cars legitimately, like Bentleys, like, you know, the Queen of England, right? The car that she rides in, Bentleys, that line of Bentleys is handmade. Every single piece of it is handmade. So that one might be a little expensive, but even then, I mean, those cars are, the car that she rides in is like sold for $500,000, basically. So it's still like a similar profit percentage, right? The profitability is still similar, right? So that's the expression that you use. Toyota has high sales, but low profitability. Ferrari has low sales, but high profitability. It makes sense, right? Guys,
But
it makes sense.
doesn't mean like a negative.
No,
No.
no, not at all. Because the thing is, you know, it's kind of like, at the end of the day, right? The total profit might be similar.
Yeah, it's the same.
I mean, it's not, because Ferrari itself is a really small company, right? Ferrari, overall, right, they don't spend that much money. Toyota also spends a lot of money, which is why they have to sell a lot of cars.